Hey everyone, how's it going? This is the second part of week one. Just want to cover a few additional points on the second PowerPoint, which is week 1B. A couple of key points I want to make sure everybody understands that will really help you throughout the rest of the semester regarding these topics. If you pull up in your PowerPoint, if you flip to PowerPoint or slide number 4, that will kind of give you a look at the open systems model itself that we discussed in our last lecture. This is really, like I said, kind of like the course that will take us through the entire details of the class that we're going to be talking about all semester. So make sure you fully understand this PowerPoint slide, but to fully understand it, you need to make sure you understand what each of those terms mean. So let's talk about that real quick. Slide 5, again, here's our definition of open systems, a conceptual framework for understanding how an organization, department, unit, or group produces results. And as you can see from the model, there are really 5 key points that we need to talk about. Inputs, throughputs, outputs, feedback, and environment. When I first started teaching this class, to be honest with you, sometimes I would dream those in my sleep. So that's how often we were talking about them. So if you happen to dream about inputs or outputs or throughputs throughout the semester, trust me, you're not alone. So very important concepts. So let's talk about inputs, which is on slide 7. Raw materials that an organization uses to create outputs. So anything that an organization uses, that's an input. So people, tractors, computers, factories, money, anything that you can think of is probably an input. So, any type of capital investment a company puts in, or any people, so whether it's you as a worker or a customer or a vendor, anything along those lines, unfinished goods, so lumber, paper, gemstones, anything you can think of is probably an input. And again, inputs also encompass like the norms of an industry. So for example, if you work in retail, customer service is an absolute necessity to be a good company. So that's also an input. So again, anything that a company uses. If you look over at slide 8, so for example at SLU, you're a student at SLU, here's some things that SLU considers to be inputs that we would use at SLU. Anything from tuition, staff, faculty, space, buildings, computers, textbooks, any of those lungs become inputs. So as you saw this, you have inputs, throughputs, outputs. So let's start the middle slide, which is throughputs. These are basically processes that are used to turn those inputs into a finished product. So leadership style, how managers manage, the culture that they create, that's a throughput. The structure, so if you have a director, manager, supervisor, employee, that's a system that is used to create inputs to outputs. Any technology that you use, so your computer systems, so Blackboard that we're using right now could be used as a throughput from information to get from me to you. That's a throughput. So anything that kind of becomes the middleman to get something from one side to the other, that's considered a throughput. So slide 11 will show you some of the throughputs that we use at SLU. So Dr. Costello and all of his deans and vice presidents, the SLU culture, our Catholic Jesuit identity, any corporate administration, so our operational units, organizational units, IT and all their systems, all those are throughputs. And as far as outputs, which is slide 13 for you, these are basically the finished product. Anything that is, completed that you exist for. So here at SLU, for example, our outputs are students graduating with degrees, alumni donating money, and we use that money to improve our buildings and improve our structure. The reason we exist, to serve the church and to serve St. Louis community. Those are our outputs. So slide 15 will kind of show you some of those details, job placement for our graduates, publications, research that our faculty do, any type of departmental collaboration to create value, the endowment that we create. All those are good things that we use to create outputs for our people. Another component, if you, again, I'll keep showing you the slide of the open systems model. You can see on slide 16 about how we have the inputs at the top, the throughputs, and then the outputs themselves at the bottom. But you have this overarching environment that is used. So our environment is basically, as you can imagine, all the external things that go on. The world that we live in, any type of politics that are going on in the world right now. Any type of new society trends, new technology that is created, Competitors. So obviously, SLU is not the only university in St. Louis. We have WashU, we have Webster, we have all these other universities that are competing. They're part of our environment that we have to make sure we understand. Slide 18 will kind of give you a general idea of the different levels of environment that we deal with, and we'll talk about each one of those in detail. So if you look at specific, that's kind of the internal hierarchical structure that we look at. Industrial will be kind of the other universities we compare ourselves to. The general system will be kind of, the St. Louis politics and Missouri politics and Illinois politics, and then any type of new laws or regulations that come up. And then finally, with the global level, what happens at our campus in Madrid, what happens, in Europe, what happens in South America. All of those kind of impact, how we look at the world, so to speak. And again, the last slide, slide 21, will kind of give you the role of feedback systems. Outputs influence future inputs. So whatever we create can affect the future. So our graduates graduate, that's our output. They could go on to, create new norms for an industry. They could create new products. Those are our value to the future. They can also impact the internal environment as well as other throughputs. So other ways we impact the environment, other ways we impact ourselves. Again, I know this is kind of just a brief overview of the PowerPoint itself. Make sure you read your individual slides because, again, I'm trying to provide you some general details or the things that I think are most important. If you have specific questions on any of the topics as you're reading through the PowerPoints, please don't hesitate to give me a call, send me an email, or I will post an area where you can post it to the discussion board and your fellow classmates can answer it for you. Talk to you soon.